My grandfather, Boris Aluf, was born in 1938 in a small town called Polsk in Belarus in the Soviet Union. He had two siblings, an older brother called Jacob and a younger sister called Maria. His mother, Hannah, a strong woman, was a housewife. His father, Lazar, was more sensitive than her, and he worked as a butcher. A year after my grandfather was born, World War II broke out. In 1941, the Germans invaded the Soviet Union, and his father Lazar was drafted into the Red Army. Hannah, with her three small children, escaped to Russia, and after a long and tedious way they reached the town of Buglama in Tatarstan, where they stayed until the war was over. In 1943, they received a message from the Red Army, telling them that their father had been killed in the war.
Being so young, he remembered little of the war.
He especially remembered the continuous hunger and the fact that he treated potato peels as if they were chocolate. In 1945, the war ended and they returned to Belarus. They had to build their life from scratch without a providing father. Life was very hard in those days. They were poor and they had to survive. My grandfather didn't remember much of his father, but he was told that he was killed by the Nazis. At that time, there were still Nazi prisoners of war who worked in construction. My grandfather and other children in town used to throw small rocks at them, yelling, "You killed my father! You killed my father!" In spite of the difficulties in those times, Hannah managed to raise her three children. As soon as Boris graduated from school, he began working in a furniture factory. In 1957, he was drafted into the army of the Soviet Union. He worked as a railway builder for railroads that led to factories and industrial sites. At the same time, he was a drummer in the military band. After his service, he began working in a new refinery in Polotsk. Boris was a hard worker, and for that he received two medals, one for the high quality of his work and one for the amount of time he worked. My grandma and granddad had known each other long before they were together, because they lived in a small Jewish community where everyone knew one another. My grandma, Galina Weinstein, wasn't so fond of my grandpa, but he kept trying and eventually she fell in love with him and they married in 1966. And in 1967, their only daughter, my mother, Ella, was born. At that point, they lived like a typical family in the Soviet Union. In 1996, Boris and his wife Galina immigrated to Israel 5 years after their daughter did, where they live happily until today.